and welcome to Shop Talk. My name is Whitney from Thrifty Whitney, and I will be joined shortly with my co-host Nicole from Vintage Haven Shop. And in today's episode, we are having on a very special guest who's going to take us on a virtual trip to France. We're so excited to invite Helen from Quintessentially French on to Shop Talk. So let me go ahead and thank you so much for being here. Some of the things that we mentioned, obviously this is a live stream, so you won't be able to see comments that come through, but we're so excited to have everyone here. And as soon as Helen comes on, which, oh, I see you here.
Hi.
Oh, we'll get started. Hello, bonjour. I'm afraid to actually try to speak French. Oh, okay, here is wonderful. Helen is coming on, and then I am turning it over to Nicole.
I will be your tour guide.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bonjour from Paris. It's so lovely to be here with you.
On Clubhouse today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the invite. It's lovely to be here with you.
So I guess we'll just jump right in. For anybody who doesn't know you, Helen, do you want to just do a introduction for yourself and your business?
Okay, I'm Helen and I run Quintessentially French. That's my business. And I buy antiques and vintage. I specialise in French antiques and vintage because I live in France. And at the moment I'm living in Paris. And it is just so wonderful to be in Paris. And I'm sure you've got questions for me about the flea markets here and Paris in general. So basically just throw it at me, whatever you want to know.
Okay. I'm sure everybody that's viewing has a lot of questions too. So if you guys have questions, you could submit them in the question box. It's a little speech bubble with a question mark right next to the comment bar. And we'll go through them too as we navigate the outline with Helen. So you are originally from England.
Yeah.
What made you?
I lived in England, born and raised in England. But my husband's military, so we've lived all over the place, all over the world. And at the moment, he's stationed in Paris, so I'm here with him. But France is our home. We officially moved to France in 2018. So I've been here quite a while, and that's when I started Quintessentially French. That's great.
So what was the inspiration behind starting your business?
Practical to start with, because living in France post-Brexit, you've heard about Brexit where Britain moved away from the EU. I would then have lost my rights to live in France. So I had to start a business to prove I could support myself. So I wouldn't be a burden. You can't move to another country and be a burden on that country. So to get my residency, I had to have a business. Now, I've worked in business. I started my career as a business banker. So I've done corporate business, and then I was a teacher, and you think, oh, you could teach English in France, but there's no market for that because everyone who's English says, I'm going to be a teacher and teach French, teach English to French people. So I've always collected since I was a little girl. My mother was a huge collector and had a house in France and loved French antiques. So I've grown up with French antiques. So it seemed like the sensible thing to do. And by buying to sell, my husband can't complain when I buy something because I just say, it's for the business, it's to sell.
I think we all do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the perfect excuse, isn't it?
That.
I mean, why shouldn't you turn your passion into what you do? It's the sensible thing, really, isn't it?
Yes. And it doesn't make it work anymore. It's just fun. So to give your whole heart to like your passion is like the greatest gift, I think. So I'm glad you're embracing that.
It takes a while to get there sometimes in life, but when you get there, it's fun.
Yes. So how has your business evolved to where it is today? Because you also have a blog too, where you navigate us through like your markets and things, like all things French.
Yeah. And I think the blog's important. I mean, the key thing, what I do, I buy things and I sell them. And that's what allows me to buy more things and do the things I like to do, like live, buy food, that sort of thing. But I think if you're always just taking and saying, you know, come and buy this, come and buy this. People like the lifestyle. I like the lifestyle. So by blogging, people can have an insight into that lifestyle as well, and they can see where I get my things and how I get them, and learn a bit about the things that I buy, because it's taken me years to get to the stage where I have some knowledge of French antiques. And I've got that through reading, through learning, through talking, through experience. So actually, if I can share a bit of that with people, and I don't think there is a lot of competition in vintage selling, which might be an odd thing to say, because some people keep everything very close to themselves and don't like to share. But I think each one of us has a different passion and has different things that they like. I can go shopping with a friend who also sells antiques, and we'll buy different things because we like different things. Our shops have different things in them. And I think by working together, you are always stronger. So, you know, if people want to come to Paris and want to go to the flea markets, well, that's fine. You know, I'll help them go. It's not a problem to share that information. I don't think you should gatekeep and keep everything a secret, because it is really difficult to find out where the flea markets are in Paris, and it's quite difficult to know what to do. It took me a good 6 months here before I could really buy in Paris with any confidence, and I've spent the last X years buying at flea markets, but it is very different in Paris. So you know, why not share it?
No, I really admire that you do that, especially like every week you'll say like the weekly markets for that weekend. And I think that's just incredible that you're willing to, not that you're willing to share, but like that you're doing the research for other people so that if they want to go to a market, they know exactly where to go. And you're not just like keeping that all for yourself.
Well, I did the research for myself anyway, because I'm going to go to the flea markets. One thing I don't like doing, people say, oh, where shall I go? Where's the best one? Where's the best one? Because we all collect different things. And sometimes for the flea markets, you never know what they're going to be like. So I'll turn up really excited to a flea market thinking this is going to be fabulous, and come home with nothing. And then I'll go to one, I think, oh, well, it's close to home, I might as well just pop in. It's going to be rubbish, and buy really nice things. So you can't. So I never suggest where people should go. I just say these are the flea markets. Go and have a look.
I always say my best tip is to pretend like you're about to break up with the thrift store or the flea market, because then that last time you go, that's when you'll find something really good.
Like this close to breaking up with the thrift store.
Absolutely.
It's a bit of a toxic relationship.
I think that's definitely the way to go, because if you really don't care if you're going to find anything or not, then that's when you find the really good things. It's when you're desperate and think, oh, I've got to find something.
Or when you only have like 5 minutes, like I'm just gonna pop in here real quick, and then you fill a cart. You're like, I don't have time.
Yeah, exactly. I do think they're very different from American markets, though, and American thrift stores and things like that. From what I've heard and what I've seen, I think they are quite different, because you rarely go to a Paris flea market and buy loads and loads of stuff if you're really looking for the best stuff, because they have a lot of things, but it's not really a bulk buy, because the markets seem to be a bit smaller than the American markets. So if I go to a street flea market, there might only be maybe 10, 20 stalls that have the sort of things that I like. So I might, I won't buy from every seller. But I have key sellers that I know and I buy from, because they sell the sort of things I like. And then some of them know the sort of things I like, so they'll put them aside for me, which is nice.
That is nice.
Yeah.
It's all about contacts.
And
building relationships.
Yeah. And it's and I think relationships are probably more important in Paris, especially if you're a foreigner. Because you're always a foreigner, because however well you speak French, you will always have an accent, and everyone, the first thing they'll say is, where are you from? So it's you're clearly not from Paris. And it's the relationships, because I've bought something and been asked a particular price, and then the partner of the person says, why did you charge her that much? She's she's English, American, whatever they think you are. And I said, oh no, she comes all the time, it's fine. So the prices do vary. And so it's really by getting to know people that people realise you're serious. They'll want to sell to someone who comes back week after week, because that relationship is better
Exactly.
than just then this is just a one-off purchase. So I mean, it really comes down to you people buy from people, don't they?
Yes.
So if you get to know the people, that works both ways. And there are some slightly odd sellers here. And there's a few people I just bypass. I think I'm not going to.
Well,
I
we
know what
have
the
them here
conversation's going to be.
too.
I'm not going to have it. I'm not going to have that conversation unless it's something to die for on their store. I'm just going to walk on past. But that's just people, isn't it?
I think
We're
they're
over.
everywhere, wherever you
Yeah.
go. So,
All you have to do is stand in line at any estate sale, and you're just like, we are such an oddball bunch of
Yeah.
of dealers.
You see that, yeah. We
love
we get stopped a lot at flea markets and asked about ourselves and things like that.
Yeah. Which I love.
Yeah, well, my husband dresses very much like an English gentleman, and so people stop us. And a chap stopped us the other day and asked where we were from, and we said we're from Paris, CCM. She said, "Oh, I used to know someone who lived there," and it turned out he knew someone who lived in our building and had been to a party in our apartment.
oh wow,
When because do you know Man Ray, photographer? His brother lived here anyway, and so his Man Ray. So there was a big. He told us all about this how it used to be a bit of a party block. So you find out interesting things when you just talk to people randomly. But you mentioned estate sales. We don't have. Well, we do have them here, but not in the same way. So I couldn't go to an estate sale because you have to have a shop. Because when you go to estate sales, it seems very much in France that you have to buy the whole room. So you bid on the room, so you have to clear it. So you have to have a van, you have to have somewhere to keep it, you have to have a shop to sell it in, your bricks and mortar shop. And so you have to take everything, the rubbish and the good stuff as well. So I don't do estate sales, but I'm very envious of your estate sales. So I think when I do come to the States, that's going to be high on my list of things to do.
that is very interesting.
Yeah. But you have to queue. There's big queues, I guess, if it's a nice house.
Yeah.
Usually they have listings like online that you could check out before, but they don't always photograph everything. So they might just deem the basement as like garbage that nobody wants, but then that's where the real treasure is.
Yeah.
So like my go-tos are always the garage and the basement first.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'll have things that like old pots and things like that. Even I've seen like English pots that like men have used to put their screws and nails in. So like I usually go to like wherever the wood shop is.
Yeah.
I rummage through there first and then I'll go in to like the house.
Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah, we have things called vide maison, which means empty the house, but they're not normally succession sales. They're more because the inheritance laws are just, I won't go into it, they're just weird in France. But there's sometimes people will open their house and you go through and there's stuff for sale and they'll just have maybe some rooms open that you can go through and they're open to everyone and they're quite fun. And if it is a house in a nice area, you do get quite a lot of interest at those. But there aren't so many of them, and they don't seem quite the same as the ones that you have. But I mainly stick to the flea markets.
Yeah, and we don't. It seems like in Paris, you guys have flea markets all the time. They're smaller, but they're more frequent.
Yeah,
whereas in my area,
there's
within a 2-hour drive, there is one flea market that opens twice a year, and that's
it. But it's huge.
Now we might have what?
Is it huge? Is it a huge flea market?
It's this town where literally 6 people live in houses in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then twice a year, people drive in and set up a big flea market. And there might be parking lot sales at antique stores. They'll have similar to probably but they're more like car boot sales. They're not like that. So it's just it's just different.
Yeah. Do you want me to explain what Paris is like? Because it is different from the rest of France. Because we do have sales all year. You have a lot fewer. They get smaller in the winter because not so many people go to them in the winter. And they sort of tail off between Christmas and New Year, and then into the beginning of January when it's really cold here. And any holiday season, so Christmas, Easter, because it's a Catholic country. And then August, when all the people go on holiday. They're smaller then. But yeah, they're all year. I mean, they occasionally get cancelled if it absolutely tips down with rain. But I've been flea marketing in the snow, so you know it's not. And then when it's sub-zero temperatures and you've got ice literally on all the glass because it's so cold, and they're still there. They wrap up. They drink hot coffee, and actually the ones when the weather's awful, really cold, tend to be really fun because the people just want to sell something. They want to have a bit of a laugh. They want to talk because it's not so busy, and you sometimes get the best things then. But yeah, they go all year, but there are fewer in the winter when it's really cold. There's regular monthly ones, and they always run. But then the weekly pop-up ones, sometimes there aren't so many of them. Certainly there are the professional ones, but then as well as professional markets, you have ones called vide greniers, and that literally means empty your attic. So that's when people who aren't professional sellers can go and sell. Now in France, you can only sell twice a year as a private person, and they take your ID when you sell. So if you sell more than twice and you get caught, there's a fine. So professionals can sell whenever they want, but they have a license, so it's all regulated. They have a market license, and they have to have a book that they can show the police if they ask to make sure they're not selling stolen goods. And then the ordinary people can have twice a year a vide grenier. Now we have one in the road outside our house twice a year, and just all the locals come down and they unpack and they put tables out, and it gets a bit of a party atmosphere. And you do get some professional sellers there as well, but it's meant to be just locals. And those are more like car boots. So you'll have a whole range of things. So you have baby clothes, you have toys, all the stuff that you don't really want to be searching through. But sometimes you'll have a stall that's got like loads of toys, and then you'll find the most amazing advertising pot or something lovely that's from grandma's attic that they've decided to get rid of. So it's not such good picking, but you can actually find really nice things there. So, and then some are seen as better than others. So in the smarter ends of town, you'll have a lot more people going there to buy than in the less smart ends of town. So it's and those tend to run in the spring and in the autumn. So you'll have lots and lots of people, lots and lots of these sales. So someday you might be able to go to 5, 6, 7 flea markets in a day, and then which is exhausting.
Sounds very similar to like how we have like yard sales or garage sales. Sometimes we'll do like a block sale, so it's like anybody can come out and sell their goods like in front of their property. But my town in particular, we are only allowed to do it twice a year too. You have to apply for a permit. It's I think it's $15 or something like that. Every town is different, but that's what it reminds me of. Like if they have like neighborhood sales, and like everybody who wants to can participate in their driveway.
Well,
but it's definitely fancier in France.
You're not necessarily outside your house in Paris. They'll just rope off a road or a square, and then you pay for a like 2-3 meters, 2-3 yards, and then that will be yours, and you put your tables up there. So, but you often have to prove you live in the neighborhood by giving your ID. But because you can't disrupt the traffic in the city, so you might have to close a road to do that. So it's very controlled where you can actually set up your stores.
And that's why they move around the locations of markets too, right? So that they don't always close the same roads.
Yeah, if they're always in the same place, you just have a nightmare with traffic. So yeah, they go. There's sort of a rhythm to it. So each place will have a sale at roughly the same time each year, but they switch the weekend. So like you think, oh, I know this market's going to be this weekend, and then you work around it, or you book to come to Paris for that weekend, and then they change it for a different weekend. So you can't be absolutely sure. And some of that is because you have to get a permit from the mayor, and if there's something else going on, it will clash with it, so you can't. And then sometimes they're just cancelled with no notice because it's Paris. We
Oh
have
my
the
goodness.
French sport is protests, manifestations or protests. So if there's a protest, they shut the flea market because otherwise you'll have people protesting all the police, and the flea market is just too much.
Do they open very early? Because I routinely follow people on Instagram, Americans, that they'll go to the Paris flea markets and they arrive before anyone is even open. Because we're used to
Yeah,
being like, you have to be there at like 6 a.m. to get good stuff.
it's like that in the country. You have to be there early, but Paris, they don't start so early. I used to get there before anyone got there. Sometimes, and sometimes I'll go there as they're opening up. But if you get there too early, it just gets frustrating, and you're walking up and down, and they never hurry to unpack. And quite often and you don't necessarily get more by getting there early because they take so long to unpack. It's after all the scientific analysis, it's basically just luck. And if you're walking past a store as they're getting out something that you like, you're the first person there, you'll get it. If you've just walked past, the person behind you will get it. And that can go on for a couple of hours. So and then if you go to one and then and it's a really good one, but you leave it to go to another one, you might leave just as someone's unpacking the really good stuff. So you can't tell. So Paris is getting later and later. At somewhere like Porte de Vanves, the big regular flea market, if you get there before 7:30, there's nothing going on. And the ones with professional sellers that are on for 2 days in a weekend, they might not be open till 9-10 o'clock because people don't come out till 9-10 o'clock to buy. So because people have nice leisurely breakfasts in their hotels. So there's really not a rush to get there early.
Interesting. Okay, that's different than here.
But in the country, if you go to a country French brocante, you'll get there early. Or if you go to a Belgian brocante, you'll be there before you've gone to bed. It's just different in different places.
Okay. So a lot of people, well, Americans, toss around the word brocante, but I don't know if everybody really understands. Is there a difference between like a flea market and a brocante? Like, is a brocante more, how would you say, curated or?
Well, I think the terms are becoming quite intertwined because people who organise it want to organise a sale, want to get the most people to come, so they pick the name they think is going to attract the most people. Brocante literally is like selling secondhand stuff, but it's been romanticised quite a bit. So a brocante has the idea of something that's a bit of a jumble and a mix of things, but nicer stuff, and you might find some old dusty treasures, and you'll you'll go through a box and find stuff stuffed at the back of a shelf, but it'll also have some nicer curated stuff. So yeah, that's sort of the implication of a brocante, is that it's a bit nicer stuff, but still a mixture of vintage and antiques. But you can also have a brocante that's just like a car boot sale. So it's very difficult to use to know what something's going to be like because of the name. But you do have antique fairs, so that'd be a foire or antiquité, and some of them actually have in the small print that you can't sell anything new, and those are the ones that are going to be the really curated ones. So it's really getting an idea. So you may have seen Foire au Château, which is on the Ile des Impressionistes, where the Renoir used to paint, just outside Paris, but in Greater Paris. That you can't sell anything new. You have to be vetted to get a stall there. So something like that. And also there's a Foire Saint-Sulpice, which is in a big square in the nice in Saint-Germain in Paris. That as well, you can't sell anything new. It's mainly antiques, some vintage, and also vetted sellers. To get there, you have to apply to have a stall. So those are the ones that are going to be full of the really good stuff. But also their prices are going to be higher. So really, if you want to find something that's cheaper, you're going to need to go and find it yourself by going through all the boxes at a vide grenier, an empty erratic sale.
We
So
have
it's
something similar to like even our like bigger markets. So there are some like throughout the US, like Brimfield, Massachusetts hosts one, Round Top, Texas has one. They're like all over. And you have the more curated upscale like tents or booths, and then you have like the ones that you rummage through. So it's very similar in that
Yeah.
respect.
Because the upmarket ones tend to be longer, so people can set out their stalls and keep them there because they have security outside around it. So if you're only going to have the market for a morning, you basically got to put it at your table, unpack everything, and then pack it away again. So you're not going to bring as much curated stuff as if you can have a stall there for 10 days.
Right.
So it's yeah.
Is Chateau also, do some of these bigger fairs have just for traders only, for that are dealers only can shop?
Yeah, you
Like,
have the day before is the pro day. So the
okay.
day before it opens, and then you have the pros, and then the press, and then so if you know someone who sells there, they can give you a ticket to get in at midday. But if you're a seller, you can get in when it opens, but not everything might be unpacked. So I usually go twice. I go on the pro day, and then I go on the first day,
Okay.
and I usually buy on both. And I keep saying I'll go back on the last day, but I never make it back
No.
because they pack up quite early.
How do you
Yeah.
get a ticket for the professional day then?
You have to be a professional, so you take your paper. I take because my business is a registered business in France. I have my paperwork, and of course, all the security guards know that. So I just take them my paperwork.
Okay.
You probably find that if you're an American, I know some American friends go. I've never actually asked them how they get in. I guess they take their American business registration, bearing in mind that the guards probably may or may not be able to read English. I don't know. Business card, business. If you've got to make the story, I take my business card and my paperwork, which they can read. So there's never any issue with going in because they know I've got an antiques business.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's
So I guess
easy.
going back to finding markets. So I had mentioned earlier that you do share like the weekly markets that are coming up for the upcoming weekend.
Yeah.
How do you find out about these? Or is there like a website, or is it word of mouth? Or like how do you find it
It's a
coming?
mixture of everything. I use about five different websites. Because not all the websites will have all of them, and word of mouth, because I always ask the dealers that I know where they're going next week.
Okay.
And sometimes you find, because the French are actually quite bad at publicity, they're bad at social media. It's only just really catching on as a thing, and the people who are quite advanced in using social media will publicize their sales well, but you also have others that they don't publicize very well at all. So I look at different sites. There are certain sites you might have heard of, like Broc-a-Brac, but they don't have it all. So I just collate them all, and I've got the Mairie de France de Paris, so the Paris Mayor's office publishes some as well. So yeah, lots of different sources, but I don't publish them until the day before because quite often there'll be cancellations. So if I publish them a week ahead, apart from the fact that people will have lost them, or if I put them in a post, someone won't read which weekend it is and go along and find it's not there because it was the weekend before. So I just put them on my stories, but I check before I post them that nothing's been cancelled, because there's nothing more frustrating than turning up and finding there's no flea market. But the other thing is you might turn up and it's actually not exactly where they've publicised it as well. And it might be just around the corner. So if you turn up, you need to sort of do a tour around, because you can see they have big white tents. So you see the white tents and all the antiquers vans, and you can see where it is. And, yeah, because I've been messaged that this flea market wasn't there. I said it was. I was there. Here's the photos. It was around the corner. So it's you get used to France after a while.
You just have to be
Beautiful place.
really, sorry, you have to be really flexible. You just have to be really,
Yes.
really flexible. That's the message I'm getting.
Yeah, and have a sense of humour. And it's difficult if you're just here for a weekend and you want to do the best. You might turn up to one and find it has nothing that you like. Because I've spoken to people who said I didn't buy anything at that one, and I bought quite well because it was stuff in my niche, but it wasn't stuff in their niche. So it's luck. You can't. I don't think you can come to Paris expecting to fill a container.
Interesting. But so you're saying that you have to go outside of Paris to get enough inventory, which
I think so.
Sense. Yeah,
I think you'd need, because they have the big professional antiques markets that are on the in various locations around France. So you have to be, use your business card and your registration, whatever, to go to. And they have more volume there, so you probably need to go to those. But that's a completely different thing. I don't tend to go to them. They're midweek, just because I don't need to buy in that bulk. And people go to the flea markets and sell their stuff at these big fairs, so I might as well just go to the flea markets and find my stuff. So again, they can be more expensive if they're selling, if they're selling to people who are coming to France to fill a container and have that pressure of needing to fill the container to make it viable, then you're talking about different price points. And yes, you get maybe a good price point for actually buying in bulk, but you might not want to buy in bulk from, you might want to buy from several sellers rather than buying in bulk from one seller. So it's not my market, it's not what I do, so I don't know a huge amount about it. I've been to a few of them and they have lots of stuff there, but my thing is Paris. Why would I drive, stay overnight, go somewhere out of town when I can just get up, walk down the road and go to a flea market?
Sounds delightful to me.
I know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm always looking for quality things rather than bulk, so that might be different for other people who are looking for quality and bulk.
Because you just have your apartment, right? I mean, I can see some of your shelves behind you. You're not buying furniture or large items. Like, you specialize in high quality smalls.
Yeah, I mean, we've also got a house in France, so a lot of my inventory is stored at my house, which is why sometimes when people buy from me, they have to wait a little while because it's at the other place, because I can't keep everything here. Yeah, I could, maybe in time I will go for the bigger things, but it's not so much fun. And when you're starting to ship furniture, it's a whole different ball game, and it's expensive to ship furniture. The only way to ship furniture and large items economically is in a container, really. So I stick to the smalls.
So you mentioned that you have a house elsewhere.
Yeah.
What region of France?
So our family house is in Normandy.
Okay.
So, yeah. So Normandy's very rural, very green, rains a lot, and it's not the best place for antiquing. There are quite a few. They have quite a few flea markets, but they tend to be the vide grenier types rather than the professional sellers. They have the odd big professional market, but I've noticed in the years I've been doing this, they've been getting smaller and smaller. It's also very close to England, so lots of people come across from England and shop there, so that puts the prices up.
Okay.
And what I found, because when we go back, if we go back for a weekend, I'll obviously go to a flea market, and I can buy good stuff in Paris for less than it costs in the country. So a lot of people say Paris is expensive, but I really don't think it is that expensive for things that are good quality, because you will find very expensive antiques. I could go and buy a paint. Last weekend I was looking at a painting that was €600, but it was a fabulous painting. It was 300 years old, 300 years old. It was amazing. You rarely get that in Normandy. You can get some lovely things. You can be very lucky, and you can get because there are some people who've retired to Normandy and are clearing their houses. But in general, you get better quality things in Paris, and the better quality things are cheaper in Paris than they are in Normandy.
Are there any other like areas or even on the outskirts of Paris that would be beneficial? Like if you're going to visit Paris for whatever reason, and you want to just kind of like envelop yourself in the culture and like see what's going on locally, like is there another region that you would recommend going strictly just for antiques, or just stay in Paris for that?
Well, for antiques, I mean, a lot of people go to Provence for antiques, but Provence is probably more expensive than Paris. And there are some beautiful antiques there, but Provence is a long way from Paris. If you drove, because you'd want to have somewhere to store the antiques and go around to all the different antique markets, because taxiing isn't quite as easy in rural France. You'd need to take a car. It's 7-8 hours. maybe that's me as someone who's English thinking that's a long drive, and you may not think that's a long drive because our distances are very different. But to me, I don't see the point in that. I mean, if we're on holiday in Provence, yes, of course, I will do my best to sneak away to antique fairs and antique shops. But places like Ile de la Sorgue are just really expensive. You know, it's a lovely place to go and look. It makes a lovely holiday. There are places, you get flea markets outside Paris, and they're mixed. There's one I go to at a chateau town that's lovely. There's another, we've been to several others and we've turned up and just felt really unsafe. Or there's spent, you know, 2 hours walking around and bought nothing because it's not very good stuff. So you need to know where to go if you're going around the outskirts of Paris. But Burgundy is quite nice, which is just south of Paris. You could drive for a couple of hours and be in Burgundy, and they have nice markets there, but they're smaller and there aren't so many. In the country, you have to get up and drive, like you said about driving 2 hours to the nearest town. It's like that in the country in France. But they do have big fairs around the place, and those are probably good places to go if you like to buy in bulk. Have you heard of Amiens Antique Market? Yeah,
No.
that's weekend after next, and that's huge. And if you want to buy in bulk, you can go there, you can go around, you can fill a trolley, and it's great. You know, you will go there and buy something because that's a twice a year huge flea market. But if you just go to a regular flea market, you're in the same position as you are in Paris. You might find good things, you might not. It's there's no easy way.
Talking about the prices, because I had one of the questions one of a fellow seller asked was, are prices as crazy as shops say they are?
Yeah, that made me laugh. I love that question. You thought,
or are there reasons? And I was like, that is very relative.
That's exactly what I thought. I mean, it made me laugh because sometimes you'll pick something up and someone will just say a price that just, the only thing I can do is look at them and laugh. It's just, and I used to be very polite and put it down and say, oh no, thank you. And now I just laugh because you do get absolutely crazy prices sometimes. But you know, that's just a walk away. It's I think it is completely subjective. Now in France, as a professional seller, you will pay 40% tax. We can't offset 40%. We can't offset. So I've got a Felix Potin pot. If I paid 80 euros for that, I can't offset that 80 euros that I paid for that against tax. I pay tax on turnover.
Sorry, is that income tax? That's income tax to France.
It's tax and what they call cotizations, which is I don't know the American system. I must admit, it's cotizations is where you pay for social services. So that covers your healthcare, having bins, you know, just the general services, social security, that sort of thing. And then tax is on top of that. So I pay over 30% tax and over 10% social security. So put them together, actually a bit more than 40%. So when you say if our price is crazy, if you're buying from a professional seller, that professional seller, even if they don't declare all their turnover. Now I sell online, so I declare 100% everything because I'm a guest in this country. I just declare everything. I like to sleep at night. But sellers at markets who are French can lose the odd thing, but they have to pay tax, and they have to pay this huge rate of tax. So are things crazy expensive? Well, if it's their job, they've got to feed their family, they've got to keep a roof over their head, and they've got to pay this crippling rate of tax on it. So I'll leave it to you to judge whether the prices are expensive or not. But you can't be in business and not make a profit, otherwise you get out of business.
Right.
Yeah, and I know some sellers, and you look at their prices and you think you're new to this and you are not going to be making a profit because you get a tax break in your first year, and it's, you know, you are not. Then you suddenly see their prices just start to go up because they've realised that they've been selling at a loss, and you can't expect a seller to sell at a loss. So when I'm at a flea market, if if it's someone I know, they'll give me a price and I'll just pay what they've asked or say no, because I know that's their bottom line of what they can, you want to come back to these people. They've got to make a living. Yeah. So that is just a little bit of information that you might find useful, because I guess your tax rates are a bit lower than that.
Yeah.
In the States.
I think it probably equals anywhere from 20 to 30% when you add it all up.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
it's a good reminder too of, like, especially when you are shopping in another country, of being respectful and knowing when to negotiate respectfully, and then also understanding, like, there's a lot that we don't understand or realize about how business functions and how it works.
I think so. But you also need to be aware that there are good sellers and bad sellers, as we've already said. I mean, bad's a bit of a nasty word. There are opportunist sellers and good sellers, and you've got to know what you're buying. And if the seller asks for a price and it's and the alarm bells ring, just walk away. It's there are fakes out there as well. Julian Damoy pots are one thing. I saw a seller who was selling a fake, and he was trying to get me to buy it, and the price kept going down and down. I said, "Look, you know it's a fake. I know it's a fake." And he said, "Yeah, someone else will buy it though."
What was it exactly?
The pots, the advertising pots, these things. Yeah.
Okay.
By Julian Damoy, because there's Felix Potin and Julian Damoy were the two main upmarket grocers in Paris. So anything with their names on it are really good. So it's worth faking it. What some unscrupulous sellers have done is got old pots and then put the transfer on. So they've got a photo of the label, and then they put those over the top. So it looks like you're buying an old pot. But I've handled so many of these things that I know what the originals are like, and so I can tell that it's an original or not. He did look a bit sheepish, but he still sold it, because I went back round and it was gone, and he didn't put it away. So it's it comes down to, if you're shopping for French antiques, you buy something you really like because you're buying it for yourself and you like it, or you know what you're buying and you know if it's so you can tell if it's authentic. Also, if you're buying a picture, do a Google search on it. Take a photo of it and do a Google search. And if they won't let you take a photo of it and Google search it, there's a reason for that, because then you can tell it's not a copy.
Yeah.
If someone did try and sell me a Monet once, an original Monet. So obviously I knew it was a Monet and it wasn't an original, but he was trying to convince me it was an original painting. So,
oh no, I saw that one and the museum. So you do not have it.
It was actually one of the Paris museums as well. So then, looking at some of your questions you asked, there seems to be a thing you asked about that was the red flags that you asked about. You asked also about negotiating.
Is it rude to negotiate the price?
Not
if
at
it's
all.
like okay.
They expect you to, because they will often ask for a little bit more, so that they can give you something back. So if you're buying something for 40, 50 euros, I would expect them to take 5 or 10 euros off that price.
Okay.
If you know in your head what they retail for, then you can you have a good negotiating position. But also, I tend to think, if I'm buying for myself, how would I feel walking away from that for the sake of 10 euros or 5 euros? And if I think I'd really regret it, I'd buy it and pay the extra. So it depends whether you're buying for yourself or buying to sell. If I'm buying and I know I'm going to sell it, I just work out what my bottom line for profit is. And if they won't go below that, then I have to walk away. It's a business. Yeah, I mean, I spent the beginning of my career telling people how to run their business, how to run the account side of their business. So obviously I need to try and follow that and not let my heart rule my head.
And are there
you know,
cultural
it's hard.
nuances with negotiating? Like someone said when they shop in Italy, it's like you have to have some soft skills. Like if you just walk up, ask how much something is, and then start bargaining, they're just gonna like shut you down.
Yeah,
Whereas you, yes, like engaging in some
yeah.
conversation and being a little
In,
bit,
yeah, France has its own. In France, you must always say bonjour. Because if you just go up to someone and ask the price, they just think you're rude. So you say bonjour monsieur, bonjour madame, and you've then negotiated. And also, if you don't know who the seller is, you can just say bonjour monsieur, and they'll say, oh no, it's him, or they'll start
Okay.
to talk to you. Yeah. So yeah, always say bonjour. And it's quite easy to ask the price. You can say, quel est le prix? Or you can just say le prix. Le prix is the price. If you're trying, they'll like it. If you're trying to speak a little bit of French, even if you just say bonjour, because they will, most sellers do speak quite a lot of English. And also be aware of that if you're talking among yourselves before you talk to them, that a lot of sellers will understand speak more English than they let on. And you should say s'il vous plaît. Even if you have to ask in English, you can say s'il vous plaît, please, at the end, and merci or merci beaucoup and thank you. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's good. And just smile.
Any
Yeah.
other like key phrases we should learn if we're going? I mean, I took French classes in
Yeah,
school, but it's not like I'm fluent by any means. So I'm just like
yeah,
trying to go back to like certain words,
yeah.
and so as long as you're like polite about it.
Yeah, but like, so combien s'il vous plaît? How much, please? Combien? Hold it up. Combien s'il vous plaît? That's a good way of asking. And if you can learn the numbers, that's brilliant. But numbers are easy because they can just write it on their phones.
Okay.
And most of the sellers know the numbers in English as well. And just you can also at the end you can wish them a bonne journée. So have a good day,
Mm-hmm.
bonne journée. That's also quite a nice thing to say.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
yeah,
I'm writing all these
if
down.
if people want to sell you something, they do usually manage to communicate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Or at least try.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm assuming since most of these are like street markets that most of the vendors just accept
yeah.
cash, correct?
And most even at the bigger markets, they prefer cash
Okay.
because once you've paid by card, that has to go through the books. So a lot of people prefer cash, and then they'll and when they've got cash, they can then use that to buy their next lot of stock. So it's France is quite a cash economy at the moment. So and you might find the prices are better for cash than they are for card because they'll have card fees as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's quite a high percentage if you buy by card. So if you pay by cash, they're maybe more willing to negotiate more and take a little bit more off, which is fair, really, because it keeps their costs down. Because the stalls are quite expensive here, so it actually costs quite a lot to sell and to park your van in Paris as well. So their overheads are quite high for being in Paris. So if you can reduce some of their overheads by paying cash, that's quite good.
Okay. That's
Yep.
good.
I'm trying to look at some of these questions.
I know, me too. I'm trying not to just like spit all the questions out. So like, I mean, for a market over here too, like I always have like tote bags in my car with like packing materials and things like that. Just in case
Same
that's
here.
to bring.
I've actually just published a new blog a couple of days ago that goes through the most of the key things about this and then bits about the market as well. So there's a blog on the website that's got a lot of these points on. But yeah, tape wrapping, they will have bags and they'll give you bags and wrapping. But if you're going through a really crowded flea market and you've got something precious, you're going to want to really wrap it up. And also I go from flea market to flea market on the metro. We don't Uber and certainly don't drive, because you have to park miles away and it's not good to drive to flea markets in Paris. But if you take the metro and you've got fragile stuff, you want to have wrapped it up before you go through the turnstiles on the metro. But the metro is safe. It's perfectly safe to go on the metro, except maybe to the Puce Saint-Ouen, Saint It's Saint-Ouen in French, but it's the one Pouce de Wen, it's usually called.
Okay.
People say the big one on the outskirts of Paris. It's not so safe there, so I usually get the bus, or that is one place I might get a taxi. Because the area, we're immediately in the markets, the road that all the markets are off is safe, but to walk there from the metro, it's not the best of places, because it's a bit of a it's not a good area. So if you're going to go there, that's you just got to watch out for the safety coming and going, because of course everyone knows that people going to the markets carrying a lot of cash. They do have cash machines around the markets as well. But
And
they
also,
are
if you look like a foreigner or a tourist, you're like an easier target too.
Yeah. I mean, there are pickpockets in Paris. It's no worse than any other big city. You just need to be sensible and keep. I have a crossbody bag and I keep it zipped up, and I split my money and cards between different pockets in the bag. So unless they steal the whole bag, hopefully I've touch wood never been pickpocketed, but maybe I know my way around the city. I don't walk around on Google Maps and things like that. I know where I'm going, so maybe that helps. But yeah, I mean, most people are pickpocketed through scams or through having a bag open, or not paying attention. So it isn't a bad place. It's a safe city.
Yeah. Your blog post, I actually had it pulled up earlier, is fabulous. So we'll post links to your blog and specifically this blog post to everyone so that you guys can have all this information, because you list some really great, I mean, this is like everything pretty much you would need to know to get started, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Whitney, do you want to go through a couple of the questions that we received from people?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with, because I think we got through our outline pretty well. Okay. And some of the questions we've already answered sort of through conversation. I do have, and I think that we got a lot of questions about like, where should I go in Nice? Where should I go in, like, where do I find this piece? And we're probably not going to hit all of those individual questions, because I think you have really said it can be really unpredictable and we don't want to misadvise people.
You've just got to hunt. You've got to go there often and hunt.
And I think you've also given us some really tips and pointers just about look for the vide grenier, look for the different events and things when you're there, like right when you're about to go to it, because it can be it can change very frequently, so you kind of have to. And honestly, you're like the best resource. I'm like, just follow Helen on Instagram, because you're the real thing.
People do, and people message me when they're coming and things like that. So it's but I'm very loath to recommend anywhere to go. I just tell you about them and you choose, because it's just, if you can go without an agenda and just go saying, I'm going to buy something beautiful and Parisian, and then you'll find something, you'll be happy. Whereas if you think, I'm going to buy this thing, then you are likely to be disappointed. You might be very lucky. I mean, but also Paris is wonderful. If you go to a flea market in Paris, the ones that are on the streets in the neighborhoods, you get to see a neighborhood. You get to meet French people. You get to there's cafes all along the road, so you'll sit in a cafe that isn't on the tourist map of cafes, and you'll have a much more authentic experience to being in Paris than if you just go through the tick list. And like, I see people queuing outside cafes and bakeries and restaurants because they've been on TikTok, and you think, actually there's a much better one across the road. It's just not on your bucket list. And so by flea marketing you really can get to know Paris well, because we'll sometimes pick a market to go to because we haven't been to that quarter before. And so we go just because we want to go and have a look around in a different area. And there's places that I just wouldn't go because they're mainly residential areas, and you find the loveliest places there. Just like you might walk around the corner, there's a little square and it's really pretty, or you might stop off at a bakery and it's amazing. So it's if you can take off the pressure of having to find things and just enjoy the experience, it's a really lovely part of a holiday here.
I love it. Okay, and we also we forgot to even put this in the outline, but your photography and the videos and everything that you put together,
Oh,
like your product photography, everything is just absolutely stunning.
I
And
love
I just,
photography.
oh my gosh, and you take these on your phone, or are you using this SLR camera? These are my questions. These are my soul
No,
searching
I
questions.
take them on my phone,
Yeah.
because I think I mean I've got an SLR
Mhm.
camera, but actually my SLR is quite old, and the phone is better, and actually for ease, because if you have to upload from you have to upload to a laptop, whereas you can take it on your phone and post it to Instagram, and the quality for the size of Instagram is fine. I just update my iPhone every 2 years,
Mm.
and it's great. It's
Mhm.
yeah. I have bought a GoPro because I've just started a YouTube channel,
Nice.
um, but that's a bit experimental at the moment. I'm just getting to grips with YouTube, so it's a totally different media, isn't it, to Instagram?
Can't
Yes,
wait
it is.
to see that.
Yes. Yes.
It's gonna be really fun.
Yes. So it's just people often say they want to see longer videos, they want to see
Mhm.
more of the flea markets. So I just use my YouTube to put some long, and I'll make them longer and longer as I go along, because editing them's
Yeah.
so yes. Yeah, you've done YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why
Instagram is
I
yeah,
I don't really have a YouTube channel. I mean, it's just our shop talk
yeah,
it's
yeah,
recordings for other things I put on because I'm like, I don't have time. Okay,
yeah,
Mhm.
we've had a couple questions of
yeah.
people. Can we buy from you and you ship to the US? And it's
I do.
yeah, wonderful.
And shipping is at cost.
Hmm.
So you buy from my website. I charge the website charges shipping, which is usually accurate. If sometimes people buy several things and it overcharges the shipping, I just send it back. I just send the money back.
Hmm.
Um, and if it costs me more, it costs me more. It's just
Nice.
so yeah. So yeah, I send everything as long as your country will accept it. There's some things I can't send to Australia and New Zealand, um, but yeah, as long as it's allowable into your country. And I don't tend to buy things that I can't send to America, so I don't buy ivory and things like that.
If it's
Um,
don't buy things that have ever been alive. That's what someone said to me once. Just
yeah, except
if
for
it's
wood.
Mhm.
okay, yes, wood. Thinking
Yeah.
breathing,
Yeah,
breathe
you
fruits.
can send a huge amount of things, but not ivory, not tortoiseshell.
Hmm.
The thing, anything that's an endangered species. Um, but I've been doing this for gosh, it must be 7 years now that I've been doing this. So I know how to do the customs and the shipping and all that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's because someone else had asked about laws bringing antiques to the US, and I think that's as long as your customs is filled out and everything, then
yeah,
it's pretty,
yeah,
um, it's fine.
yeah,
So, and then we had a couple people ask about being a seller and buy French antiques. I mean, but that, I mean, we've talked about containers. You can work with other French dealers and have them shipped to you in bulk. Obviously, like I saw on your website, the standard shipping started at 58 euros. And then, obviously, if you're shipping multiple items in one box, you're able to split
yeah,
that cost between items. But,
yeah.
um,
I mean, there's different levels of shipping.
mhm,
I do sell to some resellers, and they will fill a box, and then when the box is and if the box isn't quite full, we'll put something else in. So just if it's as you build a relationship with someone, you know what they like, and
mhm,
you can ship in the most economical way. So actually, if you buy I mean, I've got to carry in Paris. I've got to carry this to the post office, so 10 kilos and a box sort of that size is my limit. Um, and we just I just work with people. It's easier because
mhm,
then I can I can fill a box so to keep the shipping to the minimum, so they get the maximum benefit from it. And it's
mhm.
nice working with people. As you say,
Mhm.
it's being a reseller can be quite lonely, can't it? Because you work on your own. Like I've spent the day in the apartment packing, lovely orders for really lovely people who've bought from me and having it shipped to the States. But it's nice when you're actually working with someone that who buys from you a lot, and you know what they like, and you can see something at a flea market and think, oh, so and so will like that, I'll pick it up and see if she likes it, and if she doesn't, I'll sell it to someone else. So it's nice. Yeah.
I liked this question. What era do you focus on for French vintage? Because you said several
Oh,
times
that's a
that
nice one.
you know exactly what you like, and you definitely do have an
Yeah.
aesthetic on like looking at your stock on your
Yeah.
website.
My favourite is, I did pick up a couple of little bits. This is just something I bought at Chateau. I love French soupières. Look at that. Look at the detail on that. That's late 19th century. So yeah, second half of 19th century is my favourite, around about the Napoleon III era. That's what I really like. Early 20th century as well. That's my thing. When I started out, I said I'm not going to sell anything fragile, and now most of the stuff I sell is ironstone. So I'm really used to packing fragile things. I love it. I love terre de fer in France, and I love pots. That's my. This is not for sale. This is mine. Yeah, pots like that. That's my favourite buy recently. That I've been looking for ages. So that is staying with me. So I like. And do you notice it's really patinated? I had one that was had no patina on, so I sold the one that was in perfect condition, and this one with the patina. So I don't mind if they've got little chips and things, because I like history. Part of my degree was in history, literature and history, and I like things that are old and things that show their age. I've never been a great fan of pristine. If something has a chip, has a little crack, especially if that crack is really old and it's got dark, if it's got patina, tea staining, creme brulee patina, whatever you want to call it, I just think that's lovely because that shows its life. And if I wanted something that was pristine, I'd go and buy something new. I like the antiques to look like antiques. I buy the little I did have one somewhere, those little boxes, these little ormolu boxes, souvenir. Some of them are souvenir boxes, some of them are just jewelry boxes, but inside they have a silk cushion. Can you see? Now the lady's put her jewelry on that of time, and I don't know whether you can see on this camera, but it's actually really threadbare. And sometimes the sellers, because the silk cushions are a bit threadbare, they'll take them out and they'll make a new one to put in. And I never buy those. I buy the ones with the threadbare cushions, because that is tangible history of the woman who's bought this as a souvenir from Paris and taken it and used it every day. And that's my niche. That's what makes my heart go pitter patter if I see it.
Okay, you also made a comment when you said it was Napoleon. I don't know what you said.
Napoleon III, Napoleon III.
Where is
yeah.
a good resource? Because people are always like, this is a Louis the 15th. This is Louis this, Louis, all. And I'm like, how do you all know? Like, how do you understand what all that means?
Books, unfortunately, there's not a lot of online resources. But for me, living in Paris, Napoleon III was the person who sponsored Haussmann to rebuild Paris after the revolution. The Napoleons came after the revolution, and Paris was lots of narrow cobbled streets which people could barricade for revolutions. So he wanted it opened up with these grand boulevards. So that's the era, and it's through going to museums and going round the houses in Paris, the houses that are opened as museums, and you can see in the Louvre they have not only Napoleon III's apartments, which is obviously the epitome of the style, but they have lots of artifacts from all the different eras. So a lot of it's going around the museums and learning, reading up on things, talking to the other dealers. I don't buy at Pouce Saint-Laurent very often, but when you go there, it's got so much history there, and a lot of dealers who really know their niche, that actually just by talking to them and looking at the things there, you can really learn a lot. So basically, you know the different eras by learning about them.
Okay. And then all the different names are simply saying similar to, because I feel like in England we do a similar, it's like George the Third,
Yeah,
whatever.
so
But in
yeah,
America, it's
Napoleon's right.
more
Yeah.
colonial, federal. Like
Yeah,
we don't name it after
Mhm.
monarchs.
yeah. So we'd say
No.
empire style, and that would be
Hmm.
the empire after the revolution. But before that, it would be by the king. So Louis
Okay.
the 15th, Louis the 14th, Louis the 15th have very distinct styles. So Louis the 14th, who built Versailles. So
Mm-hmm.
you could Marie Antoinette style as well. Very
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Yeah, so it's yes, all the different eras, and then you've got neoclassical, who've taken where things have come from the Greek and Roman, and then of course you've got Art Nouveau, which is beautiful. I love Art Nouveau. So you've got all the
Mhm.
sinuous lines.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's reading up. I buy a lot of books,
Okay.
and visiting places. Paris is such a treasure trove. The inspiration, a lot of the inspiration comes from living in Paris and visiting all the museums. Still got a few to go, but working my way through them.
What's your favorite museum?
Oh, hard to say. I love the Marmottan, which is a small one on the outskirts of Paris that has Monet's son donated his collection of art. So you go down into the basement and it's got vaults of all the water lilies pictures.
Oh,
Um,
we have one of those in
the
Kansas
Louvre.
City. I'll say
Wow.
where I live. That's like massive.
Oh,
So,
wonderful. Lovely. Yeah.
My
Um, the
favorite.
Louvre is lovely, but I bought it an annual ticket and went in and did it bit by bit. There's so much to see
mm,
there. But it is amazing. But little museums, like there's a museum of the artist Eugene Delacroix, it's his house,
yeah.
and you can go and walk around his house has been preserved as a museum. So it's difficult. It's difficult to say a favourite museum.
Mm. There's so many.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah, but they are, but when you put it, when you do a lot of look around a lot of museums and put it all together,
mm,
you start to
mm.
create a picture of Paris in its heyday. Wonderful.
Okay. Someone asked if you sell your Lightroom presets.
If I sell my Lightroom,
Yep.
I don't use Lightroom.
Okay.
No,
There
I
you go.
just no, I rarely photo edit.
Oh,
um I
wow.
Okay.
I tweak it, the levels, but
Hmm.
I don't use Lightroom, no.
Okay.
Because I do everything on my phone, really.
Yeah.
So and I haven't got Lightroom. Maybe I should get Lightroom. Is it difficult?
Difficult.
So is it difficult transporting larger items when you don't have your own vehicle with you? If you buy something really big, the dealers will deliver to your
Oh.
to the apartment. I guess it's different if you're staying in a hotel, but um, uh, in the past, when I bought huge cast iron urns, and she just popped them in her car and brought them around to me. So
Oh, that's nice.
it depends where you live, I suppose. But I mean, I'm right in the centre of Paris, so it's easy for people to
Mm-hmm.
get here. They might
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day just pick it, just pop it round when they're tidying away.
I this is my question I added.
Yeah,
So I've been listening to some antique dealer podcasts, and they talk about going to the déballage in France.
yeah.
Like what is that? Do you know what that means?
Déballage is an unpacking. So they unpack their stuff. So they'll turn up with a big van and unpack it all and sell it to dealers. So it's a professional market, a déballage. So Le Mans is one of them. In France, near Paris, there's Le Mans and Chartres, which are both lovely cities, about an hour and a bit from Paris. They're nice, they're big. You've got to be professional to go there. Um, for for me, I don't particularly go to them because my husband works and they're midweek, and it's a lot to do on your own. It's better to go with someone, because I've got to walk to the car, which isn't parked near the house, near the apartment. You know, you drive, you get there early. It's a faff, really. So once he's retired, and I hope he's not listening to this because he's not going to be happy. Once he's retired, we'll go to all of those. I do occasionally, if I've got a friend down and they want to go, we'll go together. But they're not particularly cheap. but there's a huge variety. And of course, there's no rose baby clothes and toys. It's all professional stuff. But you can buy some really lovely things there. Yeah.
Someone had asked if your husband accompanies you to the markets.
He does on the weekends, because most of them are on the weekends. There's a few midweek, but there's one little one that runs every day except Monday. So I'll go to the midweek ones on my own, but on the weekend he does, bless him, usually, even though he really doesn't like flea marketing. But it's me having a business in France helps us with our residency, because even though he works in France, he's works for a UK company, employer in France. So if he wants healthcare, he comes with me.
And you might get a little treat or like a cafe
Yeah,
while you're
always.
out and
Yeah,
about.
powered by coffee and pain au chocolat. Definitely. But no, actually, he's a really lovely man, and he does it because, and he carries things for me, and he films me, and
And
he
he's your
does all the things he does.
cameraman, I was going to say.
Yeah, bless him. I mean, I can't be yeah, because we moved it today, didn't we? Because it's our anniversary tomorrow.
Yes.
So yeah,
Oh, yes.
he's stuck with me for 31 years. So yeah, I think I better take him out to thank him tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah.
Nicole, are there any other questions? That's all of the ones in the question box. Are there
I've
any
seen
more?
We
that I
had a
haven't
couple
missed?
like personal questions and stories if you'd like to share. So with going through so many markets and stores and things like that, do you have like a piece that you would say is maybe the most unique that you've ever found?
Well, now I did pick a couple up. Should I just show you one I bought on the weekend?
Sure.
Right, I don't know if I can get back far enough. Can you see that?
Oh my gosh. Don't.
How about that for an art palette?
I have
That's
chills, goosebumps.
it's
Is what we call
just
it. I don't
amazing.
know. Other countries
There's
call it
there's an
different, but
artist there's an artist called Pierre Nevu, and that's his palette. And there was also his easel, and he painted huge. I've got 3 of his palettes. That's the biggest. He painted huge canvases, so he's got this absolutely huge easel, which I was really tempted to buy, but I had my husband with me, and he said no. But I've got the man who was selling its phone number, and it's an a really good art dealer in Paris has who knows the artist personally, has cleared his studio because he's in his 90s and he wanted to clear it all out, and there was someone he trusted, and that's so. I mean, there is so much that's wonderful. I showed you the pot. That is just amazing. There's so much. Very eclectic tastes. I like to buy things for the house, so bigger things I tend to buy for myself.
no,
So,
that's a special piece for sure.
what I tend to stay away from are the trends, because once the dealers here get a whisper that something is trendy in the States, the prices go right up. And you can end up buying stuff that you don't personally like that much. If I buy something I don't like because I think it will sell or people will like to buy it, I usually find it doesn't sell. So that's what I've learned from experience. I only buy if I buy it if I would be happy to have it in my house, because then if it doesn't sell, I've got an antique I like. It does make it harder to part with some of them, but
Oh, definitely.
it's
But then I feel like
yeah.
it's better because then like that person who's shopping your website is like, oh, I have a piece from Helen that I know that she loves, that I know is like her style. So it makes it almost more special for the buyer to receive an item because you carefully curated it for them.
And I love it when people buy when I find something that I really love. I had a great big pitcher, water pitcher that had ducks on it, and I'd been looking for one for so long, and it was beautiful, and I thought long and hard about selling it, but I did. And the person who bought it then sent me pictures of it in her home and said how much she liked it. So it makes parting with it a lot better when you know that it's appreciated at the other end.
Sometimes you just have to part with it as quickly as possible. because I won
Yes.
a large rustic, and it said antique French coffee table.
Yeah.
It was like this real rustic low table. I mean, it was probably late
Oh,
1800s, local here. And the drawer had the export tags from France, and it had the old tag from
wow.
and I looked it up. It was an antique store in England that had closed. So clearly, this family, three generations of world travelers and antique deal sellers,
Wow.
collectors, had brought
Wow.
it over, and then I got it in auction, and I brought it home, and I almost immediately was able to sell it to some really dear friends of mine. But my husband's
Yeah.
like, "Why are you selling that?" I'm like, "We don't have room for it, and you just have to I just have to
Mhm.
turn it as quickly as possible because if it sits in here
Yeah.
longer than 48 hours, I'm going to find room for it, and we don't have room."
Yeah.
But it's so special because now my friends they homeschool, so their children are using it. It shows up in their pictures, so it's such like a warm
Yeah.
feeling of like, oh, it's really loved. That's
Mhm.
Yeah.
like the joy of
Oh,
finding a new home for it. It to me outweighs me having an overstuffed house of of stuff that I appreciate, but I
yeah.
can't really cherish because I have so much of it.
Yes. That's a really good way of looking at it. And yeah, you're right. Sometimes just getting it quickly straight on the website is the way to
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Let it linger for too long, and then it just becomes a permanent fixture in the house.
Yeah. I
Oh,
still have far too much here. I always buy more than I can get on. Buying is one of your questions. It was one of your questions. What's your favourite bit? It's the buying.
Okay. Yes.
I like
I'm gonna
buying,
add
taking photos of it. It takes a long time to do either of you run websites or
I,
Etsy's?
I have
yes,
an
I both.
Etsy
Yeah.
shop.
Yeah.
Whitney has her own
Because
website too.
it does take a long time to get things loaded up, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, the process itself is pretty quick, but I've actually hired a virtual assistant who's local and who's going to help me list stuff because if I can photograph and then send
Yeah.
her all the information and just get it up
Yeah.
there, that's so much better for the Etsy algorithm and better for obviously my website customers so that I'm constantly have to load. I don't know how often are you load? Do you have a rhythm of every Friday you update the website? Are you listing multiple times a week?
No, I try and do one. I do a newsletter, so everyone who
Snap.
subscribes gets the newsletter, so they know immediately when things are live. So if they subscribe, because some things sell out within minutes,
Mm-hmm.
so I make it all live and send the newsletter. And I try and do that once a week, but sometimes it's just if I've got too many parcels to pack in a week or I've got other things on,
Mm-hmm.
I can't make it every week, but I try and do weekly and just do a few items each week. But then they're just live once a week. So the newsletter goes out, all my subscribers see it, and then the next day I post it on Instagram. So it's
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
that's a good
yeah.
way. I just subscribed.
Well, I have to. I was on your
And
blog
it's
for probably like at least over an hour yesterday, just like going through all
oh,
all the
that's so
things you
sweet.
have written.
Yeah. Yeah, I send a newsletter when there's a new blog as well. I should blog a lot more often, but there's only a certain number of hours in the
There's
day.
so much.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes I just like to go walk through the Jardin de Luxembourg and wander around Paris and sit in a cafe because I can.
Because you can. What is the use of living in Paris if you don't do that
Right.
Yes, exactly.
regularly?
Exactly.
Well, it was
Yeah.
actually one of my questions. So, could you walk us through like a typical Saturday or Sunday, like when you get up to go to markets, and
Yeah.
then do you go to like cafes or grab lunch to go, or like how do you typically navigate like a market day?
Oh, typically we'll get up early and just have a quick coffee and go out. And then we'll go round the first market and then stop at a cafe. So if I go to Port de Vanves, which I do more in the winter because it gets a bit touristy in the summer. There's a little cafe there. It's a Colombian cafe, and we know them now. And we have coffee and empanadas, and of course, Colombian coffee is wonderful. And they do handmade. It's all they make all the food themselves, and it's lovely Colombian food. So then we'll have breakfast there. Maybe go to another market or two. And then often we will stay out for lunch because if we find a nice cafe that and then that's nice because you get to start because if we go out for dinner we tend to stay quite close to home because then you can walk there and walk back So at lunchtime, if we could, with going to all these different areas in Paris, we can find really nice cafes. So we'll often have lunch out and then just sort of have a quiet afternoon. My husband likes to watch sport, so he'll watch some rugby in the afternoon or some cricket in the summer, and then that gives me time to go through and clean everything and research it. Because
Like a lovely
yeah,
day.
I've usually got a fairly good idea about what things are, but I like to research them afterwards as well. So yeah. But yeah, weekends can be a bit. They're not restful when you're antiquing, are they?
No.
But we do
But
try. We do
enjoyable.
try and go to a museum if there's a, because I can go to museums midweek, but my husband can't. So we do try and go somewhere we haven't been before, or go to a museum. Last Saturday we went to the Musée de la Marine. It's this fabulous house right on the Place de la Concorde in the middle of Paris. You've got the Jardin de Tuileries on one side, you've got the Champs-Élysées on the other. It's right next near the American Embassy. It's just this fabulous facade of a building, and inside it's breathtaking. So that's what we did last Saturday. We decided we'd go to that museum because we hadn't been there. So I can't pretend it's not a good life. It is wonderful to live in Paris.
There was
It's a
a
beautiful
question that
city.
came in, and you had mentioned that like you like walk around and you go to dinners and things. Do you mind saying like what neighborhood is that how you would say it?
Yeah. Paris
Arrondissement?
is split into arrondissements, and we're in the sixth. So the sixth is it's there are some touristy places, but it's really quite a neighbourhood. We've got lots of schools and colleges and universities in the area we're in. So there's lots of local shops. You get to know people in the local shops. And we've got produce markets and things like that. So it's busy because we're near the Jardin de Luxembourg, but it's not too touristy. It's a nice area and it's safe. It's very safe here. Or I feel safe here. I mean, nowhere can ever be completely safe. But I would go out with friends and come back on the metro and walk down and be quite happy to walk down our street from the metro late at night. So it's good. Yeah, it's one. If anyone was coming to Paris and they asked me where to stay, I do recommend staying here.
Okay.
It's have you heard of Saint-Germain-des-Prés? That's in the 6th and 7th, so it's that sort of area around Saint-Germain, which is
Because when we went to Paris in 2017 and we stayed in the 8th, like very close to the Arc de Triomphe, and then we took the metro down to like that area.
Yeah.
So it did feel very safe, and the garden was gorgeous.
Oh, it
so
is.
I was just thinking for like future trips, like what kind of area would be a good like point to kind of like navigate around.
Yeah. It's if you're anywhere centrally in Paris, you can get to different places very easily as long as you're happy to use the metro or just walk. I mean, I walk down to the river. If I was going to the 8th where you were staying, I'd probably walk, or I'd get the metro there and walk back. Or it's the 8th is lovely, but it's a little more touristy. It's a little busier. It's more bustly. There's lots of more big shops. So I don't go to the 8th that often, but there are some nice museums. I go there somewhere. Hi, Monta. So I just saw Helen come up. Anywhere near the river's good. If you're in the centre, but just being in the centre is the best thing to do. When you go out nearer Paris has a ring road around it, the Périphérique. If you're out near the Périphérique, it can be, it's not unsafe, but it can be less safe or less pleasant, and then you have to keep coming into Paris to do the things. Someone just asked about the Latin Quarter. The Latin Quarter is lovely. We're really close to the Latin Quarter. Around the Panthéon area is lovely, particularly studenty, but that's a good thing because it's a bit more lively. We're not so lively. The Latin Quarter is a bit more lively. Sort of old people live where we live. But there's also young families as well. It's quite mixed. Yeah. The 7th's lovely. The Marais is becoming a bit touristy. A lot of the big multinationals are moving in, whereas it used to be lots of little places. But it's very creative, it's very arty. It's got a nice vibe. We'll go there to eat quite often, and I like going there during the day. It's got the Place des Vosges, which is pretty. It's got lots of nice the Picasso museum's there. It's got lots of museums. Paris is, wherever you go, there's going to be lots of lovely things to do. So, I mean, if you're coming to stay, just anywhere central.
Trying to see if there were any other questions from people. I don't see any more in the question box. And then the last thing I have, what advice would you give to someone buying antiques for Paris for the first time? I know you touched on this throughout the episode.
Yeah, just buy with your heart. Look at it critically. Make sure to the best of your knowledge it's not faked. You can tell the sign. If you're an antique dealer, you can tell the signs of something that's been faked, but look at it really carefully. Is there anything that doesn't add up? If you love it, buy it. And you can always take a photo of things and Google search them, which will give you an idea of price. I mean, prices when you Google search can be quite bizarre, but it will give you an idea of what it is. Sometimes if I buy a piece of ironstone, I'm looking at a piece of ironstone, I don't know the pattern, I can't quite place it, I'll just take a photo and Google it. Use Google Lens. So you know, if you're buying a painting, make sure you turn it over, make sure there are some very good photographs that just have bits of painting over the top, because paintings are very sought after. You get hundreds of them that have been brought in, painted in other countries and shipped into Paris and made to look old, and they're not. So just keep your wits about you. You can usually get a good vibe or not from the seller. You know, is the seller, do you trust what the seller's saying to you? But just buy what you like. Buy what you like. And it'll be a lovely souvenir for you to take home.
Yes.
I love shopping with other people because they pick up things that I wouldn't. And I've learned to love a lot more things by shopping with friends when they've come over. It's good.
Someone submitted a question asking if you do tours through Paris.
I don't, because most flea markets are on the weekend, and that's my time with the family. I just, if people are friends that come, I go around with friends, and occasionally, if it's someone that I've got to know, I'll meet them midweek at there's one at Place de Ligue, with one I said that ran during the week, because it's quite small. We might meet up and have a look around and have a coffee, but I only really do that with people I know, and it's too
hard
much
to shop with even with other dealers. If we go to the same market, I'm like, you go that way, I'll go this way. Rock, paper, scissors for whoever gets to pick pick the direction they go.
Yeah, it's unless it's good there's good friends that have come over who are and we shop round together, because it's if you're just doing it once, they can have it. It's fine. But it's no, I it's only really friends I do tours for. Then it's not tours, I just go shopping with them.
Yeah. All right.
It's okay. France is quite regulated about what you can and can't do, and as well. So I've got to be careful that I only do the things that I'm registered to do, which is buying and selling.
Good point. Yeah.
Well,
I think we've covered all of our topics, right, Nicole? I think we.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking through it.
It's really felt more just like having coffee with a good friend and hearing wonderful stories.
Oh, that was nice. Yeah.
Well,
I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I could talk about Paris forever and antiques. So
yeah.
And I'm sure people will pop in the comments. I'll post this up to mine afterwards as well.
Yes, I was going to say, so if you comment, everyone who's been commenting replay, you will get links for the YouTube channel, in our Spotify channel. They should be up by the end of today. This will save as a reel on Instagram, but it's really difficult to watch it on a replay when it's this long. Yes. YouTube is the best way if you want the visual. And then we will also have show notes on YouTube and Spotify, and it will have links for, you can, If you tap this little carrot right here, you guys make sure that you're following Helen on Quintessentially French. If you tap that, all of our handles will show up and you can just hit follow. And you can follow Nicole and I for future shop talks. Our next one is in May. Oh my goodness. And we have, I mean, we're just really upping the ante here with the level of guests that we're the next one is going to be pretty fabulous. And so you guys have to wait a few more weeks to hear who that is going to be. And just again, our goal with Shop Talk is to really help and educate vintage sellers. It is to give you guys exposure to as many different kinds and ways of doing business and resources as possible so that you can feel equipped to run the kind of business that you want specifically. Not a business that looks like someone else, but a business that works with your life. So it's just an absolute joy to bring on these amazing guests to chat with us.
And you're our first international guest too.
Wow. I just think it's amazing what you're doing. It's a wonderful thing. And it comes back to what we said at the beginning. It's about sharing, isn't it?
It is.
And when you work together, you're stronger.
A rising tide lifts all boats. You know, that cliche is true for a reason. It's like,
and most of us are female sellers. And that's, it's women supporting women as well, which I think is important because we understand each other.
Yes, absolutely. Oh,
the pressure to face. Yeah.
Well,
thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to chat with you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
We'll be chatting soon again on Instagram, I'm sure. So.
I'm sure we will. Yeah. It's been lovely to get to know you better.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.